You thought sleeping in prison was hard? Try taking a dump. That's right. Try taking a poop in prison. If you think sleeping in prison is difficult, you're going to have a real hard time getting that stomach nice and cleared out. In this video, I'm going to share the 4 stages of taking a dump in prison. That's right. The 4 stages of taking a poop in prison. By the end of this video, you'll know what to expect when you get to jail and prison, or when it comes to using the toilet and the proper etiquette that there is involved in using the toilet in prison. Everything in prison got to be complicated, or it doesn't. Taking a crap can really be complicated. And if you ain't watching and paying attention and you take a crap at the wrong time, you can put yourself in danger. You can put your life in danger. You can put your manhood in danger. You need to be careful on what you're doing in prison. And going to the toilet is just as dangerous as anything else. And you need to have your P's and Q's in check. I don't even know what P's and Q's mean. Do you? So it's your first time in jail and you don't know what to expect. Well, I'm going to start off with sharing a story. That's right, a story. You know I love to share stories. I remember talking to one of the owners at a company I worked for, and he was telling me about the time that he got arrested. And he said the cop pulled him over and said, "Why are you speeding?" He's got his wife and his family in the car with him. And he says, "Man, because I got to take a crap." And the cop says, "I don't care if you got to take a crap. You're going to sit here while I write you a ticket." He's like, "Officer, can you please rush this ticket?" Come to find out his license was expired. And the officer didn't like the way he was acting. So the officer put handcuffs on him. He's like, "Officer, you really going to bring me to jail because my license is expired?" And the officer said, "I have to. It's the law." He said, "I just told you I got to go home. I was speeding because I have to take a poop." And he said, "It doesn't matter. You're going to have to hold it." He said, "Dude, it's turtling. It's trying to come out of me right now." And the officer said, "I don't care. You're going to have to wait." And so the officer made him wait. And he said he was sweating and shivering with the handcuffs on like this. And he was like, "I got to go to the bathroom. I got to go to the bathroom real bad." And his wife was like, "You going to be okay?" He's like, "I don't know. I don't know." Oh. And the officer was like, "You better hold it. You better hold it." He said, "Bring me to jail, you idiot. Bring me to jail so I can get to a toilet." The officer threw him in the car. The wife took the car. She left. He gets to the jailhouse and he's squeezing. My man's sweating. His whole clothes is drenched. He got to go so bad. He's back there. He started kicking the window. And the officer said, "Don't kick my window." He said, "I ain't trying to. I'm holding it. I'm holding it." And so he gets to the jailhouse and they take the cuffs off him. They put him in the holding tank. And there's one other dude in the holding tank at this particular time. He says it's a little small town. He said he gets in there. He looks at the dude. He said, "I'm sorry, bro." He walks past the dude. He slams his thing out. Right there, everything went out. He ain't even get a chance to put his booty cheeks on the steel toilet. It just went everywhere, man. He said, I'm sorry. And he crapped everywhere. And the dude's looking at him and he's looking at the dude because it's wide open, you know what I mean, in the holding tank. He said, I'm going to clean it. He said it was the worst experience of his life. Man, welcome to jail. Where the first stage of learning how to use the bathroom or taking a poop in toilet is called the holding tank. That's right. Stage 1, the holding tank. What is the holding tank? Well, it's the first experience you have on using a toilet that is absolutely disgusting. The holding tank is usually filled with people who are drunk, people who are high, and people who are mentally challenged and mentally disturbed, and they don't treat the toilet with respect. They live on the streets. A lot of them are so drunk that they don't care anyway if they don't live on the streets because they're puking and crapping. And so the toilet area sometimes can become really, really nasty. That's right. It's foul and wild up in there. It's the holding tank. And listen, in New Orleans and in Jefferson Parish and in Louisiana, when you hit that holding tank, it could be dirty and nasty because when you get a bunch of people who are inebriated, you think they care about your prison politics? No, you're going to have to bang them up and ride them out because they that intoxicated or inebriated that they don't care about nothing. They're not thinking about nothing. They saying everything out their mouth. Dudes is getting whipped in the holding tank and it's your first time and you're a fresh fish and you ain't never been in a holding tank before and you just caught some Mickey Mouse charge and you like, what am I going through? And you got to pee or poop. Either or, you got to go to that toilet. One toilet in the holding tank. That's right. They might have 50 dudes, 60 dudes in there walking over each other and you got some wino who's sleeping next to the toilet. So you got to drag him out the way. And he's so loaded, his beard and his face dragged on the ground. You just dragged him out the way and you looking at their body and they're looking at you like, it's all good, man. Move old boy out the way, man. Go ahead, take you a leak. And you look down to take a leak and it's literally filled to the top. You know, when you sprinkle a leak on side the toilet, it's going to explode over and go over. Now it's going to be on the ground. That's on you. And them dudes are looking at you like this, because they got some head busters up in there and they're looking at you. What you going to do? You're going to pee and you like, damn, I'm scared. So you hold it. You sit down squeezing it till the orderly comes in there and cleans everything up. And the only way they getting the orderly up in there is if they move people from cell to cell or clean it out to get an orderly in there to clean it up. And that's just the way it works in the holding tank. But let's say you got to go like the boss who I used to work for had to go and you just got to explode. Imagine if you looking on top and you go to sit on that toilet and that toilet is filled all the way with urine, crap, and puke. And you got to sit on there. Well, you got to hold your pants, but you ain't never been in there before. And you sitting down like you at your house. Well, they ain't no at your house. You can't use the bathroom like your house. You got to watch everything around you. You know what I mean? Or you just wait until they clean the toilet up, because the officers will clean the toilet. But a lot of time, them officers, they don't care about cleaning no toilet. They going to leave it filing wild because they think you deserve what you got. You shouldn't have came to jail if you wanted a clean toilet. You shouldn't have came to jail if you wanted your privacy. There ain't no privacy. And toilet paper in the holding tank, man, you better hold it. I'm glad I ain't never had to take a dump in any holding tank. Out of all the years that I spent in prison, I never had to use the bathroom, take a dump in the holding tank. It was either I already made it upstairs or to the dorm, or to the cell block. But I seen dudes struggling in that holding tank, that drunk tank, that's what they call it, to have to use the bathroom. That's the first stage of pooping in prison. The first experience is the holding tank. And listen, I've been in holding tanks where the toilets were clean. I remember going into Kenner lockup, and this is, right outside of New Orleans, and having to use the bathroom in there. Like I said, take a leak. I ain't never had to take a poop up in there. But the toilets were clean. I'm like, dang, this is a clean toilet. The orderlies kept it clean. They had them trustees, and trustees kept it spotless in Kenner. But try going in Gretna. Oh, man. On a weekend, during Mardi Gras, you want a clean toilet and toilet paper? Man, you're going to wait. You're going to use your shirt, And look, them prison toilets, they strong. They got that air suction. Whoosh, whoosh. They'll take your shirt if you use your shirt to wipe. You know what I mean? Or you got to keep that milk carton. That's another thing, because, they got to feed you, feed up. If you in there during lunch, they're going to feed you, and they bring them little milk cartons in there. Dudes are taking peas in the milk cartons, leaving there. Orderly come in, clean it up, throw the milk cartons away, get the toilet clean, bring that bleach in there. Everybody gets glad. And when that toilet gets clean, up in that holding tank, them head busters are getting it first, because they holding it up too. And they're like, all right, it's clean. Say, what you doing, bro? Say, bro, step back from that toilet. And you look like, well, I have to pee. They're like, man, you better hold and use that next milk carton. I'm about to sit on this toilet for a minute. And that dude sit on the toilet, he going, and you looking, you like, damn, man, why you pooing like that? That's the way they poo in prison, man. Them dudes, he a convict. He's institutionalized. You could tell just the way he's sitting on it. He all comfortable. He looking around. He like, I got it first. And if you ain't never been to prison and you the fresh fish, it's your first time in a holding tank, you're going to have to wait to the dead last to get on that one toilet to take your pee. And look, you only poo if you absolutely have to. And that's the first stage of pooping in prison, taking a dump. That's right, the holding tank. But we're going to go to stage 2 now. Stage 2 is what I want to call the open dorm. That's right. You done went from the holding tank. Now you experience in the open dormitory. In the open dormitory, there ain't no holding it. Because at this point, you at home. That's right. They done gave you a bunk. You got a number, a parish number or a DOC number or something. And you got that number, and you got that bunk. You got them, traded your street clothes for parish jail clothes. Oh yeah, you got a number. Dude told me one time when he was in the holding tank, this is what he told me. I'm going back to the holding tank, stage 1. He said, man, they had one roll of toilet paper in the holding tank the first time he was in there. He saw a dude who, all right, so they read your charges in the holding tank. I don't know how it is in all the other states, but in Louisiana, they read your charges in front of everybody. They don't care. You know what I mean? So you sitting in there with dudes who got all kind of charges. That's right. Whatever. You think about it, they got it. Well, the dude who had the toilet paper, they read his charges. He was on 2 second-degree murder charges. And so them dudes were like, dude was looking at him like, man, he got 2 unaliving charges, man. And he would look comfortable. You know what I mean? He was sleeping on a bench. He had the toilet paper as a pillow, and he was laid out like this. And the dude's like, man, I got a poo. And I said, what you did, bro? He said, man, I went and took a poo. He said, I used my socks. He said, that good thing them toilets worked. He said, I always knew about them toilets. Took them socks with him. He said, man, but I wasn't waking old boy up. He said, man, no, indeed. Plus, they gave me $1 million bond. He said, I wasn't going to be the one who poked that bear. I said, that was a smart move, bro. I said, sometimes you just got to use your sock, bro. You know what I mean? Use that bathroom, move on. But now you're in a dormitory. And so you have to go, because you held it all the way in the holding tank and you upstairs. Well, this is your first experience of rows of toilet. That's right. The dormitory, there might be 4 or 5 toilets. You know what I mean? On this row, and right across, you stare at the other people, 4 or 5 toilets in them. So, you know what I mean? If all 8 toilets, somebody's taking a poop, which is, rare, unless it's right after chow or something like that. Dudes ain't always pooing at the same exact time. But you might be on one side and you stand straight at another dude and you looking at him, you looking at. So you got to get used to the art of conversation while you on the commode. That's right. You sitting there talking. You like, what's happening, bro? He's like, it's all good, man. What you in here for? You like, man, they got me on these burglary charges. What you in here for? He's like, oh, man, you know what I mean? He said, man, I just caught me 2 bodies. You like, oh, 2 bodies? And they got me on the same tier with you? He like, yeah, bro. He said, man, what kind of offender you are? And you like, man, I don't know, man. Hey, bro, what you think about that football game? And the Saints ain't playing too good. Like, man, Saints ain't never going to win the Super Bowl. This back in the day before the Saints won the Super Bowl. And so you sitting there, you got to get in stage 2, the open dorm of learning how to poop in prison. You getting used to what it is on a day-to-day in prison. So you have to get yourself comfortable, right? You don't know yet, but you still, taking a poop and you got your pants at your ankles sitting right on top of your ankles. You didn't take your shoes off. Well, you didn't realize, and this is where you're starting to realize why dudes take their pants off or take one pant leg out their pant leg to take a dump. That's because they got to be ready in case something kick off. Some dudes in prison, listen, this is we're going to get to stage 3, but we ain't there yet. But some dudes, I'm going to tell you how they use the bathroom. It's even crazier than that. So you taking one pant leg out your pant leg, and you realize why you got to do it, but you don't think it's that necessary. So you kind of ignoring it like, it's not that big deal. I'm not doing that. You know what I mean? I'm going to poop like I'm at my own house. You know what I mean? In the morning time when I got my PJs down at my ankles and I'm just sitting there and I'm all relaxed and I got the little heater on in the vent room, Nah, then you sit next to a dude and all of a sudden you see another dude punch him while he's boom, 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 and they fighting and they fall all over you, boom, and you're like, oh, it got on me, man, because you didn't know that was going to happen. And you slipping and sliding because you didn't take your pant leg out your pant leg. You take one pant leg out your pant leg just in case something kick off. You always got to be ready. I know dudes who were taking one pant leg out their pant leg when they still come home. I know dudes who did enough time, they so institutionalized, they still poo with one pant leg out the pant leg. So it just depends, I don't want to be institutionalized, Did 10 years, you do 20, 30 years, you might be institutionalized. Some dudes ain't because they've been waiting their whole life to get out. They got dudes who did 2 years and they act like they did 50. They mindset, it's a mindset thing. It's all on you. It's how you treat your own mind, So, the open dormitory, stage 2 of learning how to poop in prison, you starting to understand the etiquette of it, right? You starting to understand this is the first time that you might see a man sit down to pee. And you like, damn, why he sitting down to pee? And you realize, well, you didn't know that there's protocols in prison that prison punks have to sit down to take a pee. And that's just the way it is. And so this is kind of throwing you shell shocked for a minute. But now you're learning how it works. You're learning what time to use the toilet. And then you're learning that they do other stuff on the toilets at nighttime, during disco night. And so you're starting to figure this stuff out. And that's that stage right there. Stage 2 is just the open dormitories in jail. Stage 3, prison. Now, when you get to prison, you locked in. You done got a sentence from the state. The state or the feds, they done gave you 5, 10, 15, 20 years to life. And this is your home permanently till you breathe your last breath. So during this stage, you know what I mean? You a convict. You ain't just taking one pant leg out your pant leg. You taking everything off, shirt off. Only thing you got on is shoes, strapped up. You got your shoes laced tight. And you sitting there comfortable, you know what I mean? You got your book you're reading, You might be reading, you might be reading a John Grisham novel, The Chamber, You might be reading, an Anne Rice novel, You might be reading your Bible. Dudes read their Bible, get the word in, they daily bread, Some dudes are reading the Quran, whatever you read, but dudes read. Now they using the bathroom like that. You taking a dump, you comfortable. You know what I mean? Like I said, you ready. Some dudes keep that iron on them. Now, I heard in other states, it's all race politics. So your people are looking out for you. So everybody, I guess they got somebody watching, who's strapped up with some iron, But in the South, it don't go like that. It's on you. You better take care of yourself, unless you got your rounds, your people you come up with in your neighborhood. So, you learning how to use the bathroom on a professional level. You a convict. You ain't no fresh fish no more. If you go to prison and you get to prison and you acting like you still in the open dorms or the holding tank, it ain't going to go well for you. In prison, you learning when to take a leak, when not to take a leak, how it works. There are times when the prison toilets get shut down because dudes is handling business, and you can use your imagination what handling business is. That's what they doing at that time for a certain set amount of time on Friday night or something like that. So you done figured all that out. You know they got dudes back there. You don't want to get in the line of fire. A fresh fish gets in the line of fire. You know what they doing back there. Don't go stumbling back there, catch a hold of something you don't need to see. So in stage 3, which is prison, you are professional. You know how to use the bathroom the right way. You got your own tissue paper. You got to stash your tissue paper in your locker. Or you in a prison where they every week they give you a roll, or they keep them fat rolls right next to the toilet. And you ain't disrespecting nothing there. The toilets are clean in prison. It ain't like the holding tank. They spick and span because this is convicts. They live there. This is dudes' houses. So it stays bleached and sanitized and clean. See, in the holding tank, you walk in there and just stand by the toilet, you might catch hepatitis. But in prison, you ain't catching nothing. They got so much bleach, it smells like bleach, pine sol and bleach. That's what it smells like inside the holding tank. Inside the prisons. Floors are clean. Everything's clean. You go up in there acting like a savage. That's what happens in the parish jails. And we'll get into that in another video. Some of the parish jails are so foul, dudes is living foul. But in them prisons where they got them convicts and they doing time, nah, man, you ain't going to disrespect no toilet. That toilet ever stay clean. Orderlies keep it clean. Or if you in your cell and you in your cellar, you don't work something out, you going to keep it clean. Or them officers ain't going to let you because they hand you a mop, they hand you the toilet brush, and you got a few minutes. They come up and down and hand it each cell. Each cell take their turn clean. And dudes want to keep it clean. Dudes got their own towels. Keep clean, man. You could drink the water out the toilet. They got it so clean. And that does happen. I've had to take a bird bath inside the toilet because the whole tier was bucking. They wouldn't take no showers because they wasn't getting treated right. So I'm like, they can't take a shower, but I still want to get cleaned up because it's the middle of summer. So, you keep your toilet clean, take that bath in that toilet. The toilet is multifaceted in prison. So you have to learn to be a professional, be a convict. But the final stage in the 4 stages of pooping in prison is what I call drop a deuce anywhere. This means you are completely institutionalized. You can take a dump, not just in any cell, any dorm, any prison, any jail. You don't care. You'll take a crap in the field. That's right. In Louisiana prisons, they got field work. And if you got to use the bathroom, they got so you got people who carry the water coolers and people who carry the crapper. And in the South, they got, it's two pieces of plywood with little feet on it. And you can open it like that with a little chain and it closes. And so you just go in the corner, they set that in the spot, and the officers let the inmates go right there. You can see them. They can see you. There's always gun guards. There's gun guards, there's gun towers everywhere, but in the field, they got them officers on them horses, and then they got them line pushers, and everybody's got their holes, and they tilling the earth, and you got to take a crap. Well, you got to go drop, by the 2 plywood pieces that they carry, and somebody got to carry that, and you got to go in the earth, and they give you a shovel, and you dig your hole, and you bury it. That might be in the same field where they growing sweet potatoes or growing lima beans, and you're going to eat them lima beans. Ain't nobody saying, they know you got to poop. So if you really got to go, you really got to go. Because dudes are like, man, try not to poop in the field because we know we got to eat that stuff. So you got to be a head buster to want to poo in that field. That means you reached a status where you somebody because ain't nobody going to tell you nothing. You could drop a deuce anywhere. You could drop a deuce in a hole in the field while people are watching you on horses with blasters. Dudes are tilling the earth looking at you. You mean mugging them, they mean mugging you. You ain't got no book in the field. It's just open. You know what I mean? They got worms, crickets, and everything, and you just gone. And it ain't that big of a deal. I know this stuff sounds crazy, and it is. Welcome to the Pen and Shank, the most unusual and unique crime and prison channel experience on YouTube, where we talk about stuff that needs to be discussed inside the prison. I'm trying to be serious, y'all, but I really is serious. When I talk about this stuff, like pooping in prison, I question myself, like, am I really going to make this video? And if I'm being creative and I'm being unusual and unique, well, I have to cover these topics. And I know it's absurd. I'll admit that it's absurd. And you probably, if you're not used to it, you're probably thinking this dude's crazy, but I'm trying to give it to you, in the realest I can to explain to you how absurd it is. And it is absurd. And you need to see it in the absurdity that it is. And so there it is, the 4 stages of pooping in prison. I'll go over them so you have them just in case you want to jot them down in your mental database. So when you get to work tomorrow or you're hanging out at your next family function, you can tell everybody what it is and the 4 stages of pooping and taking a dump in prison so that you can pass this information along accordingly. Stage 1, the holding tank. Stage 2, open dorm. Stage 3, prison. Stage 4, drop a deuce anywhere. And that's the 4 stages that you go through of incarceration on how to poop and take a crap while you're incarcerated. Give me a like and subscribe to the Pen and the Shank. Hit that bell notification and share this video. Go back and watch some of my other stuff and help get this content pushed out. Man, let's get it.